Welcome to this Tutor to You A-Level Sociology Paper 1 walkthrough for AQA A-Level Sociology. In this video we're going to look at the 30-mark education essay questions which appear on Paper 1 of the AQA A-Level Sociology specification. Now the sample question on the screen has been written by Tutor to You for the purposes of this video. Obviously for copyright reasons we cannot use AQA questions. So what we've done is we've created our own question with an item that is similar in style to the way in which AQA present their questions on Paper 1. It has an item and it also has a question, and the question is asking you to apply material from item B and your knowledge, evaluate the view that the main purpose of education is to serve the needs of the economy. So we're looking at the functions of education, but we're also looking at other aspects of education here too. Let's look at the item. Sociologists have suggested that education serves different purposes. Most suggest that the role of education is to give students the skills they need to succeed in the job market, whilst others suggest that education prepares pupils for their future roles in society. Most agree that education serves the needs of the economy by creating a future workforce. However, some sociologists suggest that education serves other functions, such as transmitting ideologies. Now, looking at the item and looking at the question, you'd be right in assuming that this is a functionalist versus Marxist question, but there are also some other hints at other theories in there, which we'll look at when we're mining the item. But first of all, whenever we get a question, we look to decode the question to see what it is truly asking us to do. So we have the question here: applying material from item B and your knowledge, evaluate the view that the main purpose of education is to serve the needs of the economy. So the key things we need to look at here are evaluate the view, and the main purpose of education is to serve the needs of the economy. Now, evaluate the view means that we need to present a range of views on the statement. This is a debate style question. So we need to present material that agrees with the statement, and we also need to present some material that might disagree with that statement. The statement itself hints at us looking at functionalism and Marxism, and we're going to go through some of the functions of education in a moment. But are there any others that might view this idea of the needs of the economy? So we might be thinking potentially, we may be thinking about feminism or postmodernism as well. We could even bring in some new right ideas if we wanted to go down the route of looking at how marketisation and privatisation might have an impact on the economy. But we'll keep it relatively simple at the moment, where we'll look at which of the following functions of education serve the needs of the economy. So if we think about our functions of education, we have the teaching of specialist skills, put forward by Durkheim, promoting a value consensus, the ideas of Parsons, role allocation, the ideas of Davis and Moore, an ideological state apparatus, ideas of Althusser, reproducing and legitimising inequality, and the correspondence principle, Bowles and Gintis. Now we have to think about which of these functions of education do serve the needs of the economy. Well, the teaching of specialist skills quite obviously serves the needs of the economy. Promoting a value consensus. Now the idea of promoting a value consensus, teaching pupils universal norms and values of society, so it provides a bridge between home and wider society, doesn't specifically suit the needs of the economy. However, you could evaluate that by talking about how in promoting a value consensus and promoting universal values, this transmits an ideology that fits in with the needs of capitalism. We're going to leave this one unchecked at the moment because this would be the other side of the debate, and then you can evaluate it to say, well, actually, it does serve the needs of the economy when it does this. Role allocation, quite obviously that would serve the needs of the economy, sifting and sorting pupils into their future roles, giving them status. So we have the most capable people performing functionally important roles for the economy. The ideological state apparatus, well, that transmits norms and values, particularly of the ruling class, but it also transmits the ideology of capitalism. So we would say that this potentially serves the needs of the economy. Reproducing and legitimizing inequality, well, that serves the needs of the economy because what it does is it creates a low-paid workforce who don't challenge their position. And the correspondence principle. This, of course, serves the needs of the economy by creating a docile and subservient workforce, according to Bowles and Gintis. So we have 5 points here which will serve the needs of the economy, which is a good range for this essay. We can also use that idea of promoting a value consensus or promoting norms and values as a point against the idea that the main function of education is to serve the needs of the economy. But we would then evaluate that and say, well, by promoting capitalist values, even by promoting patriarchal values, we could potentially be serving the needs of the economy, particularly by promoting patriarchal values that suggest that women are a reserve army of labour or that they are in lower paid employment. So things through like channeling girls into lower paid careers, that can serve the needs of the economy. That's quite a difficult one to do, but there is the potential there for you to do it. Now let's mine the item. So reading through the item again, sociologists have suggested that education serves different purposes. Most suggest that the role of education is to give students the skills they need to succeed in the job market, whilst others suggest that education prepares pupils for their future roles in society. Most agree that education serves the needs of the economy by creating a future workforce. However, some sociologists suggest that education serves other functions, such as transmitting ideologies. Now, I've highlighted some of the key hooks in this item that we may use. Of course, if we just use the item, we're not going to get enough range to get into the 25 to 30 level on the mark scheme, because what we are highlighting here is not enough of a range. We need to add more in. But what this may do is it may reaffirm some of the ideas you have when you've decoded the question. So students the skills they need to succeed in the job market. Durkheim and specialist skills, which we've mentioned on the previous slide. Future roles in society, Davis and Moore, role allocation. And creating a future workforce, Bowles and Gintis and the correspondence principle. So in there we have 3 points that would agree with this debate, which is not enough of a range to get you into the top level of the mark scheme. We also have a contradictory point, one that suggests that the main purpose of education is not to serve the needs of the economy, and we could focus this on Althusser. However, as we've already discussed, Althusser might suggest it transmits a ruling class ideology to control pupils. However, that ultimately ends up serving capitalism and therefore the economy. Likewise, we could talk about patriarchal ideology, and again we could make the evaluative argument that transmitting patriarchy serves capitalism and therefore serves the economy. Now, many people debate the idea of introductions in an essay. I personally think that they can be useful to organise your thoughts and set out some of the different sides of the debate. They are largely knowledge-based, and what you are doing really here is telling the examiner, this is what I am going to examine throughout the course of my essay. So you might highlight some of the points that you're going to make in this, and I would suggest doing maybe 2 to 3 sentences if you want to do an introduction. It's largely going to be knowledge based. You're not going to get many skills of analysis or evaluation in here. If you feel more comfortable doing an introduction, do so. Otherwise, you can just start with your first point and go straight into it, and you wouldn't be penalised for doing so. But here's an example of an introduction. Education can be argued to serve the needs of the economy through several different functions. It teaches pupils the specialist skills they need to compete in the job market, and I've referred to the item, and sifts and sorts pupils into their future roles. However, other sociologists would argue that it can transmit ruling class and patriarchal ideologies. So I'm hinting here at the 2 different sides of the debate, but I'm doing very little else other than that. This is largely AO1 knowledge. Now, a bit of exam gold before we start on the main body of the essay. A really good way to show a sophisticated understanding of how the functions of education work is by supporting these with examples of policies that have reinforced these functions. It demonstrates to the examiner that you have a deeper understanding of how education fulfills its functions and the role of government policy in supporting the functions of education. And I'm going to show you an example of how I do this in our first of two sample paragraphs. So when we're looking at a sample paragraph, I'm using what is similar to a PEAL format here: point, explain, evidence, link, and evaluate. I set it out quite simply. There are other ways in which you can structure your paragraph depending on the ways in which you've been taught by your teacher. The way I've done it here is by starting out by making the point. One way education serves the needs of the economy is through the teaching of specialist skills. Okay, so what is the teaching of specialist skills? Durkheim argued that education was best placed to provide pupils with the skills they need for the complex division of labour in modern society. So there's my explanation. How does the education system do this? It is achieved through pupils being taught the basic skills they need to work, whilst also allowing students to specialise in areas that will put them in a good position in the job market. So we're hinting already at how this serves the needs of the economy. We've explained the teaching of specialist skills. We've explained how schools do this. Now I'm going to apply a couple of government policies in our next part of the paragraph. This can be seen through government policies such as creating a national curriculum and focusing on areas such as maths and English, which provide the economy with skilled workers. So there's one way. I'm showing a greater knowledge. I'm showing that the functions of education are reinforced through the national curriculum and through the government creating policies specifically targeting maths and English. I'm using an example. For example, recent proposals to make maths and English compulsory to age 18 by the Conservative government and other initiatives such as GIST and WISE to address inequalities and, importantly, shortages in STEM fields. This ensures that the economy can function adequately with minimal gaps in labour. So you can see here I've linked in and how does this serve the needs of the economy? How does teaching specialist skills serve the needs of the economy? How does the government reinforce these specialist skills? I've shown a deeper understanding of the functions of education and how they work. The one thing missing from this paragraph so far is an explicit evaluation. Now, there are a number of different ways in which we could evaluate. The best way is through an explicit evaluation. And to do an explicit evaluation, we need to think about what we've put in the main body of the paragraph. What have we put in earlier in this paragraph? Well, the main points we've made are that the teaching of specific skills will have a positive impact on the economy. We've also mentioned that make sure there are no gaps in the labour market. So we need to address these 2 points in our evaluation. We need to think about how we can link our evaluation back to the point that we have just made. And I'm going to show you how I've done it. Now, I've highlighted in red some of the ways in which I've echoed the point that has been made before. When you evaluate, you should look to echo the language you've used earlier on in the paragraph. The first part in red, however, this is indicating to the examiner that I'm going on a change of direction. I'm going to criticise the point that I've made. Critics would suggest that education does not provide pupils with the necessary skills to compete. Now, in the first part of our paragraph, we've talked about education providing pupils with skills. We are now arguing it doesn't. Labour shortages in some fields such as education, healthcare and the sciences have led to gaps in these industries as evidenced by recruitment crises in these areas. Now, I've put recruitment crises there as an echo in a language. We're not recruiting enough skilled people in some of those areas, and this is why the government has had to act. So this is an explicit evaluation of the point that has been made. And you can see this is not just a simple point saying, however, many pupils leave school without qualifications. We've developed the point more. We've talked about how school fails to give pupils the specific skills. We're going to look at a second sample paragraph. This time we're going to come from a Marxist viewpoint, and we're going to talk about how education serves the needs of the economy through preparing pupils for the world of work. Now, this is linked into Bowles and Gintis ideas. So Bowles and Gintis suggest that the education system prepares pupils for the long shadow of work through mirroring the features of work in school. How does it do that? Well, I've explained here through the hidden curriculum, concepts such as hierarchies are transmitted to pupils. I've given an example of this hierarchy. Head teachers rank above teachers and teachers are above students, much in the same way as managers have higher status than workers. So we've explained how education mirrors work. I'm going to develop this and show a little bit deeper understanding by using another example of this. Furthermore, knowledge is fragmented and pupils are alienated from the true purpose of their learning by not being able to select what they learn. This is replicated in the workplace, where tasks are allocated to workers and they have little control over the work they do. So you can see I've shown how education mirrors work. I've used two examples in here. How does this serve the needs of the economy? Well, it serves the needs of the economy as it indoctrinates pupils into being compliant and minimises unrest amongst workers, which has the potential to destabilise the economy through industrial action. Could have gone simpler with this and said it serves the needs of the economy as it creates a docile and subservient workforce. I've just developed it in a slightly different way and talked about how the potential for destabilising the economy is controlled by the education system. Now again, we need to explicitly evaluate this. So let's look at the points we've already made. School mirrors work and control over pupils and workers. We need to reference these in our evaluation. At least one of them. We need to make a link back to what has already been made when we are doing an explicit evaluation. So, however, changes to the way in which people work in contemporary society are often not reflected in the school. It's very much a postmodern point here. In a post-Fordist economy, individuals have more freedom over what they do. Furthermore, pupils have greater choice than in previous generations, with more going on to university to study subjects that will give them greater opportunities. So you can see here it's quite a developed evaluation. We've talked about how school doesn't mirror contemporary work and how individuals have more freedom versus the point that we've already made is that pupils are controlled. Now, jumping ahead to conclusions, these should make a judgment on whether the main view of the debate is correct. We've presented two views of the debate, but we've also criticised them. The item hints at ways in which the main view is limited. So, for example, in our item, it talked about how the education system may transmit ideologies. These can be used in the conclusion. And in some debates, there is a natural midpoint whereby there is some truth in the argument, but there is a significant alternative present in that debate. A conclusion should be 2 to 3 sentences and make a judgment on the effectiveness of the arguments that you have presented in your essay. My example here is whilst both Marxists and functionalists would suggest that the main purpose of education is to serve the needs of the economy, they disagree on whether this is a positive or not. Marxists suggest serving the economy means serving capitalism and promoting inequalities, whilst functionalists view meeting the needs of the economy as beneficial to society. So whilst I've argued that yes, it does meet the needs of the economy, this is my judgment, the education system does serve the needs of the economy, I'm also suggesting that this is either a bad thing or a good thing depending upon your theoretical position. And so I've made a judgment on the effectiveness of the arguments that are put forward. That concludes this Tutor to You A-Level Sociology Paper 1 walkthrough, looking at the 30-mark education essay questions on the AQA A-Level Sociology exam. Thanks for watching.